Going inside the issues of our community, this is Local 12 Newsmakers.
What happens here on the border, frankly, is going to impact and is impacting the rest of the country. It kind of snuck up on y'all a little bit, but you've got it. And I've been saying for years, they're running over me and headed your way. Well, you're the winner.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. The flood of undocumented immigrants across the U.S.-Mexican border in the last decade has made immigration one of the most potent issues in the political landscape. Nowhere is that more true locally than in Butler County, where Sheriff Richard Jones has made action against undocumented residents a hallmark of his administration. A month ago, Local 12 reporter Rich Jaffe joined Sheriff Jones and State Representative Courtney on a personal tour of one part of the border, Cochise County, Arizona. Here is one of the reports Rich prepared for that trip.
The front line of this country's war on illegal immigration is southern Arizona's rugged Cochise County. Officials estimate that every day, an astounding 1,000 illegal immigrants enter this country across the county's 83.5-mile border. 10% of those caught already have serious felony histories in the U.S., and while some are looking for jobs, others are hauling tons of drugs across on a regular basis.
And frankly, the biggest burden has been to the community, the disruption of normal social life. People not being able to leave home together. They have to stay home and watch their place so it's not invaded and burglarized, and day and night traffic through backyards and tearing up gates and fences and destroying water sources that are very scarce.
With only 80 deputies to cover 6,200 square miles, Cochise County Sheriff Larry Deaver fights a daily battle most of the country doesn't even comprehend. A recent university study found nearly 40% of Deaver's department assets are being spent dealing with illegals.
Unfortunately, when you have to say yes to these kinds of matters, it means you're saying no to other very important issues like local drug distribution and burglaries and theft that don't get the time and the attention that they need.
Just weeks ago, Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones and Ohio State Representative Courtney came here to search for solutions to growing immigration problems back in Ohio.
And it's just such a massive undertaking to try to stop this. It's you can't feel it unless you've been here and you've seen it, and you can see it on television, you can talk about it until you've been here and seen it and lean on the fence and talk to the people that do this every day. What an undertaking.
The emphasis here is on trying to control and contain the flow of illegals crossing the border. In Douglas, Arizona, at the busiest border patrol station in the country, 500 agents stay busy 24/7. Cameras and lights spring up like the latest electronic crop along the desert dividing line. Four-wheel drive trucks carry night vision cameras mounted on huge masts. In a high-tech surveillance center, agents watch dozens of cameras day and night. And where cameras can't see, ground sensors trigger alarms, and soon, ground radar is coming. Here in the incredibly rugged Huachuca Mountains, the illegal human traffic is actually so common that the Park Service puts up warning signs to caution people that if they are up here, they could run into smugglers. The biggest deterrent can be seen from miles away, the fence. It runs like an ugly seam across the southwest border, literally a line in the sand dividing Mexico and the United States. Where it's still under construction, nothing but a few strands of wire separate the two countries. But authorities say the new fence is working, forcing illegals away from the cities where they can blend in quickly to the desert and mountains where patrols have more time to catch them.
We have to know who's coming into this country. We don't know. And we can see by where we're standing right here how easy it would be. Terrorists, people that want to do us harm, I mean, they're coming.
But not everyone here is a fan of the wall.
People are always going to find a way over, under, or around. They're being channeled into even more remote, more dangerous parts of the desert, which means I expect more people are going to die.
And die they do, routinely on the dangerous trail to freedom. Officially, these people are called IAs, illegal aliens. Out of food and water, separated from the rest of their group in the Arizona desert, these two men flagged down a Cochise County sheriff's deputy for a ride back to the border. He gave them water, his lunch, and thanks to Border Patrol, a ride home so they could no doubt start their journey again. According to those on the front line, the answer is pressure from the rest of the country, where the problem is just starting to be felt.
I am joined this morning by the two Butler County officials who made that trip. Since 2005, Richard Jones has served as the sheriff of Butler County after 6 years as chief deputy. Before joining the sheriff's department, Jones spent 17 years with the State Department of Corrections. Courtney Combs is the state representative from the 54th District of Ohio in Butler County. Mr. Combs is a real estate agent by profession. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
I know from watching the little video on your website that you already knew Sheriff Deaver.
I already knew him. I'm on a national committee on immigration with him. We serve together.
With some national sheriffs.
National sheriffs throughout the country.
So obviously this is an issue that you have paid a lot of attention to. You knew Sheriff Deaver from Cochise County, but going there, what was it that you learned by being on site that maybe you didn't understand even from all of it you already knew?
Basically, you can't imagine until you've been there, like I said, and you've seen it. When Mr. Combs and I stepped out of the vehicle and we walked up to the fence, and you couldn't see anything this direction, you couldn't see anything that direction, but you seen the fence, and then you seen the giant holes in the fence, and then when you talk to the leadership in that county, or the ranchers that we talk to, the civilians that we talk to, it's, make no mistake about it, it's an invasion, and they're not staying there. They're just passing through. And Sheriff Deaver's been telling me for over 2.5 years, they're coming, and coming they are by the thousands.
I think the point being is that what you got to see, and what Sheriff Deaver's has told us, is that they're coming and they're bringing contraband and drugs and who knows what else into this country, and it's so open. One of the first questions I asked Sheriff Deaver's down there was, can you close the border? And he said, yes, I can close the border. And I said, well, then why don't you close the border? And he basically said, well, the federal government won't let me. You know, you saw in the film the surveillance and the motion detectors and all that kind of thing. And they have a day to day and a half out in the open there to catch these people before they get to a major highway. So this can be stopped. Another part of it that he told us was that up until this time, there hasn't been a lot of ammunition or guns or that type of thing carried by these people. Now he's starting to see it more and more. So he feels that we're going to have more shootouts, more problems, because this is a big drug traffic thing. And the sad part about it is they take advantage of these people, promise them a new land in America, they get them hyped up on drugs, so they carry 80 to 100 pounds of marijuana on their back across the border. He told us that the Mexican military will escort people up to the border and point them north. Some of them make it, some of them don't, but that's the way it works. I mean,
we actually seen photographs of the military escorting the dealers in by the ranchers that filmed this. Mm-hmm. But it's such a hot issue that if you watched in the recent debate, the presidential debates on the Democratic side, that Hillary Clinton flubbed that question on live
on
debate.
Driver's license.
Yes, on driver's license, and she lost 15 to 20 points within 24 hours.
What does it tell you that so many people are crossing that border? And, you know, particularly from Central America, from Mexico, the Central American countries. What does that tell you?
Well, you know, you'll hear all the time that these are poor people just trying to make, you know, they have it so poor in their country, they want to come to America and live the American dream. That's not always the case. Of the 300 in one county, Cochise County, that the sheriff says they catch in one county in 24 hours, 300, 1,000 get through a day in one county.
Yeah, but what does that say if there's that many people who are willing to risk the danger, and we all know that
it depends.
People are dying?
Well, they're not all coming here for a better life. 10% of that group that's coming through, 10% of them are coming here for drugs or already have criminal activities or already have criminal records, and they're coming here illegally, and they're coming here, they get jobs, they work, they ship a large portion of their money back to the country whence they came. You know, here in the United States, in your community, $1 circulates 6 times, you know, before it goes back to where it started from. That's how our communities work.
In a country like El Salvador, my wife just returned from El Salvador, the single largest source of income is people who are in the United States sending money home to their families. In Mexico, which is a very large country, has oil as well. They're the second, remittances from the United States are the second largest. So, you know, this is coming here and working really is this very important.
It's about the money, and it's also,
which is what immigration's always been about.
Well, it's also about, you know, they're one of the biggest coffee producers in the world, but they have corruption in their government. We talked to the sheriff there and the leadership there, when we were in Cochise County. We were at the port of entry. They told us not to go into Mexico because the city there had 27 police officers killed because of corruption. The police chief drives around in an armored vehicle. That's how bad it is. The sheriff said he used to go over into the community. He had friends over there. They've told him, don't come over anymore. The corruption is so bad and it's so dangerous, and it's about the drugs.
We were standing there at the border. I tried to get Rick moved on over there, but he just wouldn't. He wouldn't go. He wouldn't go over there. But I think the answer to your question, Dan, is that yes, there are thousands. Of course, 1,000 a day are coming in that county. So they're looking for the better life, and they're told about the better life. They're told that Phoenix is just over the mountain. All you got to do is cross the mountain. Well, Phoenix is 300 miles away. They're not told that. And the other part about this situation is we need to know who these people are. We need to document them. We need to know who they are, what they're about, and where they're coming from. If you want to change immigration, now I think Rick and I both agree, we're entirely 100% for immigration. If you do it properly, you come in. Now, if you're an illegal alien, that's a different situation. We have no idea who you are, where you've come from. You have had no medical care, no vaccinations. We're seeing an uptick in tuberculosis and these types of things. It's something that's got to be controlled.
You know, you're in Butler County. We're headquartered here in Hamilton County, but the Southwest Ohio, greater Cincinnati area. Compared to other places in the United States, New York, Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, Tucson, relatively small immigrant population here, has been for 150 years. Why is this such a big issue for you as sheriff or for you as a politician, given that situation?
It's pretty easy. 2.5 years ago, I noticed that I had an increase in prisoners in my jail. They're not in my jail for being here illegally, being illegal aliens. They're in my jail because they've committed crimes while they were here, state crimes. And I wasn't getting any compensation. And I started noticing that the crimes were increasing. It's not that they commit any different crimes than what my homegrown criminals have. But it's been on the increase, just like it has throughout the country. The crimes are getting more violent. MS-13 gangs. We don't have a population such as California or Texas or Arizona, nor do we need that. You look in California, they've closed hospitals down, and the schools are taking the blunt of this because the taxpayers, we can't afford to pay for our social programs that we already have. So I noticed it in the increase, and it's been on the increase ever since. We deport 40 a month from our jail, 40 a month. Now, but again, in my jail, I have probably over 12 countries represented in my jail. I have a female employee that speaks 5 languages. She probably needs to speak 12.
You're in the House of Representatives, and we're going to get to your legislation that you've introduced in the second half of the show. But what do you hear from representatives from other parts of the state?
The bill that I have that we'll discuss later is co-sponsored by a Democrat by the name of John Dominic, who lives in the eastern part of the state. And as I call it, the hallway talk, when you talk to representatives one-to-one, they feel that something needs to be done. The problem is the leadership is trying to be politically correct in these issues. So the bill has got a bill number, but they won't assign it a committee.
It has not yet gone to committee.
And what my whole thing is, let it go to committee. Let's discuss this. I'm willing to discuss and try to make things better for everyone.
Okay, we're going to discuss this right after a break, so stay right there. Stay tuned. After the break, we will turn our attention to issues of local versus federal authority in the enforcement of immigration laws.
I'm trying to get legislation passed in Ohio through our state representative, Courtney Combs, to get legislation passed to where I have the authority, and local law enforcement does in Ohio, to arrest someone who is trespassing in the United States here in Ohio and put them in our jail. From there, they can be deported.
Welcome back. Immigration policy and enforcement is constitutionally a federal responsibility. From the beginning, however, Sheriff Jones has sought a role for his department and a year ago was granted some authority to enforce immigration laws. On September the 11th, Representative Courtney Combs introduced legislation, House Bill 308, into the Ohio House of Representatives. If enacted, House Bill 308 will require companies bidding on state contracts to participate in a federal program to verify worker citizenship or immigration status, and it would make it against the law to transport or harbor illegal immigrants and restrict college benefits, public assistance, and driver's licenses privileges for those in the county illegally, or this country illegally. We turn now to those legal issues. So, okay, we're back. Courtney Combs, this bill we were just mentioning you've introduced, and it is now stuck without assignment to a committee. And technically what that means is if it doesn't go to a committee, it's never going to get reported out to the floor, right? It's a way of freezing it up.
It is a way that Columbus has, leadership in Columbus has, to kill a bill. And basically, this bill, we've researched it. We got the constitutionality behind it. It's very similar to a bill that's been passed in Oklahoma. The bill is designed basically to prevent abuses in the system. If the federal government were doing their job, we would not need a bill like this in the state of Ohio or any state. It's obvious as of last May that the United States government did not provide for us what we need as far as we're concerned about protection.
President Bush supports comprehensive immigration reform and put that forward. Ironically, from a political point of view, Republican President Bush ended up more on the side, this is one of the few times in his administration, more on the side with a lot more Democrats than he did with Republicans. So this issue split the Congress down the middle, and it is very hard to see how that legislation is going to occur.
Well, if you look at it, when that legislation, the comprehensive immigration package they were trying to get the vote, they thought they had it made when Ted Kennedy and Senator McCain came out and were in agreement, we're holding hands. But we were in a sheriff's conference, the National Sheriff's Conference, and 2 attorneys from the White House spent 3 hours working on Sheriff Deaver and myself. Probably 8 sheriffs in the entire country. They took us in a little room, spent 3 hours trying to get us convinced to support that issue. It was so important to have the national sheriffs behind it. We would not support that issue.
Okay. Let's talk about your bill.
Sure.
Section 802, and we'll be able to see some of this on the screen. No person shall transport, move, or attempt to transport in this state any illegal alien. No person knowingly shall conceal or shelter from detection any illegal alien in any place in this state. Imprisonment for not less than 1 year, fine of not less than $1,000. What does this mean in terms of church workers, particularly? People who minister to immigrant populations don't ask the question about whether or not they are documented or not documented, serve their needs as they are presented. What does that say to somebody who has them in a car, takes them someplace, who provides shelter for them? What's that say about that?
Basically, it says that if a person is illegal, it's same as being a thief or a murderer or a rapist. If you condone those types of things, it's an illegal act, then you are part of that illegal act. Now, it sounds on the surface very rough. But the point being is, if you were doing this unknowingly, and we talk about church and church groups who help.
It's not that they do it unknowingly. They don't care about it.
They don't ask about it. And what this will do basically is say that it's your responsibility to know whether they are legal or not legal.
In response to a similar sort of law, Cardinal Mahoney in Los Angeles said that all Roman Catholic clergy and church workers would then have to just commit civil disobedience.
I have read that, and I've heard what the Cardinal said. I'm a Catholic myself, and I believe in helping people. But if you want to do something, change the law. Make these people legal if you want to do that. I've been in many discussions.
But you oppose that, as the sheriff just said, the comprehensive reform and any sort of move towards regularization of the situation of the current immigrants.
The first part about that is that you got to close the border. You got to stop this one county, 1,000 people a day coming in, undocumented, that we don't know who they are. That has to be stopped. That's the first step. That's what we're trying to pressure the federal government into doing. And if all states will get together, the federal government will have to do that. That's number one, and that can be done. It's not building the fence. It was proved when Rick and I were there. The fence in populated areas like Douglas, in places that we were there, the fence is important so they don't get into the cities and whatever. But when you get out and basically the rough areas which we saw here earlier, the sheriff has said he can stop this. He can stop the border. You don't need a fence.
Does he stop it by what? How does he stop it?
Enforcing the laws that we already have on the books and having the people to be able to stop it.
It's a people, it's amount of staff available, right?
Well,
coverage.
When you watch,
or you mentioned something about using weapons before and that we haven't used much. Is that what you're talking about?
No, when you watch, and they arrested the two here when Rich Jaffe was here, and they arrested the two. The Border Patrol just took them back to Mexico. You know, they come back.
That's right. Yeah, they're going to cycle right back around.
The average is 10 to 12 times.
That's right.
Is there any punishment? When you got in the cookie jar, I know you never got in the cookie jar when you were a kid, but when you got in the cookie jar, you got in a little trouble for that, and you were apt not to get in that cookie jar again. These people is catch and release, catch and release. There is no punishment.
You know, another part of your bill puts an obligation on companies.
Yes.
To check backgrounds, and if they don't and they're caught, then they incur financial fines.
That's correct. Taxes increased.
The business community has been very opposed to that, saying this sets up multiple rules, federal rules, state rules, companies that operate in 50 states or 30 states. This is a big problem for them. What do you say to that?
Well, number one, state by state, many states are adopting this same type of legislation. Like I said, this is based on Oklahoma, who's adopted it. There are other states that are doing the same thing, and we have to get a handle on who these people are and where they're coming from. That's the important part. Who are they? The other point of that is that it comes down to dollars. I know cooked food in my district where they came in and arrested 160. Rick ended up with 20 or so in his jail over that.
On state charges.
On state charges. I've been told, and I haven't verified this, but I've been told within a matter of just a few days, Cook had hired people back in who were legal people. So when you hear that Americans won't take these jobs, I think that's a misnomer. I'm a believer. I'm a passionate person. You got to take care of people. You can't let people starve. It's just like the medical end of it. You ask about.
And I'm aware of time. Do you, the two of you, this is for both of you, do you believe with the 11, 12 million undocumented immigrants who are here today? What do you think? Round them up and move all those 12 million out? How are you going to do that?
No, I believe that you enforce the laws that we have, you cut the assistance, the welfare, you enforce the rules and the laws that we have, and they go back on themselves. I call it self-deportation.
But in fact, some may be using hospitals or schools, but they're also paying taxes if they're in those jobs. They're having money withheld and
I'm glad
Social
you brought that
Securities.
up, because some of the people we took at the raid that we recently made, some of them were using Social Security numbers, and they were paying taxes.
That's right.
Yeah, they were paying taxes.
They're never going to get any of that.
Well, so they were using like somebody else's Social Security number.
Absolutely.
And if it was your Social Security number, you wouldn't be real happy with it.
No,
You wouldn't get the benefit, believe me.
I wouldn't get the benefit.
No.
But either do they, but they are paying taxes. So thank you very much for being here. This is a interesting discussion, and we'll have you back. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next week, I'll be joined by the head of OKI. Have a good week.